And to talk about the worst people in the world, I'm joined by one of my favorite people running for office right now, we'll get in there, Abdul Al-Sayed, who's running for Senate in Michigan. You have been running a campaign talking about the corruption that is, of course, rampant in this administration, but throughout our politics. And we got a really great example, unfortunately, last night with a post that seemingly should have been a text sent out by Donald Trump to his attorney general. I want to read a little bit of it. Donald Trump wrote, "Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying that essentially same old story as last time. All talk, no action, nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia? They're all guilty as hell, but nothing is going to be done." So Laura Loomer then revealed about the Truth Social post that President Trump just posted what appears to be a text message he sent to Attorney General Pam Bondi, telling her the lack of arrest and accountability for deep state Trump haters is killing our reputation and credibility. Laura Loomer is confirming that a cognitively declining Trump meant to send this as a text, or did, and then wanted to make it public, leaking his own message. The President of the United States, the man who ran a campaign saying that he was being politically prosecuted, is now publicly asking the DOJ to go after political opponents. What the fuck? Like, where do we even go from here?
This is like hypocrisy wrapped in lies, wrapped in grievance, wrapped in the particular kind of bad fermented sauce that Donald Trump offers. I mean, just think about this for a second. He is publicly pushing his attorney general to prosecute sitting elected officials over things he personally reviewed and has already concluded that they're guilty. That's not how the system works. First, the system should not be used to weaponize against elected officials who are of the opposite party simply because you don't like them. Second, you don't get to decide if they're guilty, right? You get to, at best, have an opinion, and the system gets to decide after adjudication whether or not they're guilty. Third, there should be independence between the president and the attorney general. You shouldn't be publicly directing the attorney general to go after politically motivated prosecutions. And fourth, there actually is something being done. Pam Bondi actually is investigating these people. It's just that he doesn't like the outcome of the investigation, which clearly seems to have shown that there isn't anything to actually prosecute them on. He's just trying to remand publicly his attorney general. All of this is the worst kind of things that people were thinking through back in the framing of this Constitution. It's the kind of stuff that 1984 is built around. And this is a really, really dangerous set of precedents, particularly in this particular moment.
Yeah, and you've been on the trail so much recently talking to folks. How often does the individual corruption of this administration come up in regards to not just the crypto scam, and we're going to talk more about that, might be the most abhorrent thing in the world because they're doing it publicly. And so they think, if we do it publicly, no one's really going to care because they'll just say, this is just another Trump thing. But what have you heard from folks around Donald Trump wanting to go after his opponents? Because I think that this administration, unfortunately, picks really good enemies. When you're going after law firms or Harvard or Columbia, these aren't the most popular institutions. But of course, what they're doing is illegal, it's corrupt. How do we counteract that and make the case for these institutions that have seemingly failed us? They have failed us, and make the case against this corruption that people seem to have ignored.
Donald Trump has a couple of unique skills. Number one, he's very good at recognizing that the more you normalize a thing, the further you push the envelope to where people are going to react.
That's what the public tweets are about.
Exactly. And the public understands this. When you are out in the communities, people understand that there is a president right now who is violating the foundations of the Constitution. They see it, they hear it. The problem, though, is that over time, because they're moving so fast and they're setting so many precedents, the things that would have elicited a howl from the public now barely register, right? Because they're pushing this kind of thing. And that's number one. Number two, he's very good at positioning himself as the champion of the people, right? And he puts himself in positions and he takes on folks who he says, I am going after them on your behalf. It's like when he said in the campaign that I will be your retribution, right? And I think we've got to make sure that folks understand that if he can do that to the likes of a Harvard, if he can do that to the likes of a white shoe law firm, if he can do that to the likes of a Jimmy Kimmel, what's going to stop him from doing it to you?
Yeah.
And when you do that, and it is built around a whole architecture of communication that allows everybody to echo and pick and choose the parts of you that sanitize you, which is exactly what's happening with Donald Trump in real time, that sets a really dangerous set of precedents. And I think we have to be very, very clear about what the implications of these precedents are and about the ways that he is abusing them against you. Right now, the real bounds of our politics aren't right versus left. The real bounds of our politics are the people who've been locked out and the folks who are locking them out.
Well, that's why I find it so interesting that, like, of course, we are responding, and Disney, I think, has lost like $8 billion in market cap since the decision to suspend Jimmy Kimmel's show, like essentially fire him. But we kind of feel like we still have an obligation to call for these companies to do what's right, which seems kind of like crazy in this day and age. Like, we always talk about the fuck you money, but no one's saying fuck you. Bezos won't. Zuckerberg is sucking up and sitting next to him and saying how great you are. That hot mic clip, I don't know if you saw, but Zuck at the White House, when it was like, well, I didn't know how much you wanted me to say that Meta was going to invest, was so telling for a couple of reasons. The first, all the Trump investment numbers, whether it be from the EU, from private companies within the US, they're all bullshit. But two, this is a really great opportunity for Trump to show, like, oh, Zuck, you're doing such a great thing. You're investing in America. They're playing us at both ends here. Look, how do we approach our relationship with corporations that we thought were like somewhat interested in what we had to say? Because this is not a real marketplace. Jimmy Kimmel's show wasn't bad. It was because of Trump that he's gone. Like, do you think that we have to just approach these private actors differently going forward, or like what is your? Because I think you just have to.
Jack, if you want to know what the oligopoly looks like, it's that.
Yeah.
It's when one of the richest people in the world can sit next to one of the most powerful people in the world, and together they can collude off scene about what they're going to say to trick the American public. And the thing about it is, these folks do it plain-facedly, but it's been going on for a very, very long time. Look, when I'm out in Michigan, I always tell folks, the disease of our politics isn't Donald Trump. Donald Trump's just the worst symptom. It's like the worst manifestation of the disease. The disease is something that is way deeper and it's been happening for a longer time than the last 10 years since Donald Trump came down that hideous golden escalator. The disease of our politics is the ways that corporations and billionaires can buy off politicians. These folks just say the quiet part out loud. And what's fascinating about that is because they say the quiet part out loud, they get to reset what is normal. And I think all of us have to recognize that corporations and billionaires buying off politicians or cozying up to politicians to rig a system against us, that is the reason why our lives have gotten so much harder. And here's the thing about it. We spent a lot of time talking about what Trump did today because it is so insane and so counter to the precedents of what this country was built on. But we don't spend as much time, I think, focusing on the ways that the democracy that we want to save has been eroding for a long time, failing to deliver the basic things that people need. Mm-hmm. Healthcare premiums are going up, 10, 15% this year?
Yeah.
Above and beyond healthcare inflation that has been wild for the past 5 years. That's just healthcare. You think about the price of eggs or the price of gas or the price of anything that you need to live your life, the price of rent, the price of a mortgage, the inability to afford your basic car note, right? Or the car insurance to make sure you can drive that car legally in a community like Detroit. These are the foundations of our lives. And the problem is Donald Trump recognizes the disconnect between the political conversation we have and the lived experience of most people. And so he's able to get away making it worse and pretending to make it better. And I just think that for us as folks who want to save our democracy, we have to be foundational at tying the corruption that we see here to the ways that people's lives are harder. Mm-hmm. You get your attention fracked through your eyeballs and eardrums by corporations who have figured out how to addict you to your phone or sell you a new version of your phone and because they create a battery that fails in a year.
And want you isolated and sad to sell that to you.
Exactly. And then the only refuge you've got is right back to the same shit that you were addicted to. And I just think we've got to get real smart about recognizing that connection and painting it for people. Mm-hmm. Hey, your life has gotten harder. Why has it gotten harder? Well, because these folks here have bought off politicians to rewrite rules to allow them to get away with yet more. You get your wages suppressed, so you make less for the work you have to do, and you end up having to pay more for the shit you have to buy from them.
Yeah, and I think that's why the connection between corruption and just like our lives getting noticeably worse all the time is so important that you're making on the trail. A lot of campaigns this cycle are as well. I think corruption is what is going to define our politics for a while, hopefully. I think this is the conversation everyone needs to have. Certainly, there's a conversation within the party about obviously not taking corporate PAC money, also not taking APAC money has become something that I see in the comments. Fucking thankfully, of all of these campaigns, what do you think it is that has like animated that feeling within the base, within the Democratic base?
You know, the funny thing that Trump understands is that if you're being corrupt in public, at least people kind of see it.
Yeah.
The problem with too often with Democrats is we have this legalized system where corporations and would-be oligarchs can buy and sell politicians, but they do it privately. They have these private conversations, and then everybody is so flummoxed why that's such a big deal when it comes out in the public. I have been very clear from the jump that I think that the corruption of our politics by special interests in corporate money is the foundational problem in our democracy right now, and I don't want to partake in it, which is why I don't take corporate money now. I didn't take corporate money in the past. I will never take corporate money in the future. Any Democrat who wants to tell you that they're going to stand up to the system and is taking money in the system or has not recognized that in the past and has taken that money in the system, they are part of the problem. Right? Not part of the solution. You are not going to fix the system playing the same exact games that the system has enabled, allowed, and perpetuated, right? And so I just think we've got to get right and get honest. I do think that this is a moment where, because of the nature of communications, everything's going to be made public. So you just got to be really good at coming out and saying who you are and what you're about, right? And I just think the party, we've been trying to point to that guy and say how corrupt he is, and at the same time, we play too often too many of the same games. We have a choice right now in this election about how we want to proceed, and I think the answer has to be we are no longer going to participate in a system that has been robbing people of the basic needs of a dignified life for a very long time. We're going to show up in their lives authentically and honestly and directly with real solutions. We're going to tell them what we're for, and we're going to show them, right, our hands while we're saying this is what we're about. And then we are going to outcompete on the very foundations of who can make your life better. And I think we win that every single time.
Yeah, and of course we need to like substantively break with the perceived corruption rampant in both parties. But I think there's some element of like we want and need to be animated by a feeling of like so many people talk about like, oh, the Democrats need their own Trump, or like we need to take on that persona sometimes in the form of like Governor Newsom, what he's doing right now in California. Obviously, that's a way that Democrats haven't actually fought back in a long time. Do you think there needs to be any feeling of like we want vengeance in the way that we govern, like govern with a vengeance? Or like what do you think needs to be the ethos of how Democrats approach even a Senate minority, but a Senate majority?
I don't think we need vengeance, but I do think we need to be willing to stand up. And I do think that we cannot continue to get rolled every single time that they show up, and we come to the proverbial metaphorical fight of our politics with memos, right? And I just think that when it comes right down to it, I think we have to be crystal clear and direct and honest. I also think, though, that the way you build a movement that people want to join is to say what you're for, right? Showing up and saying, hey, we're going to stand up when people break the norms, mores, and laws of our politics, and we're going to do everything we can within the bounds of the law to protect people from that. But also to say, hey, like, we can have nice things, but it means that we've got to be willing to show up together to get those things done, and we've got to show some backbone. And the problem is too often, right, they say mean words and we back down. And I just think that there's a world in which you just show back up and be like, all right, we can say mean words back if you want to.
Who do you think in the Senate is doing that right now?
I've loved, and I've obviously this is anybody who knows me knows that I've loved the way that Bernie Sanders has shown up. I've loved the way Bernie Sanders has shown up since before I've been alive, right? Because the thing that you're going to always get with Bernie is like Bernie's actually super predictable. You know what he's going to think and what he's going to say, and you know what he's going to think and what he's going to say because he is consistent, right? You know where this is going, what Bernie believes, and the problem is too often, like, I think when folks look at the party, they're like, I actually don't know what you're going to say, and I don't even know if you're going to show up. If you're going to say anything. And I actually think that there's like just the showing the will to go and rally people all over this country and to have the conversations that I think too many people are too scared to have. That right now, I think, is an act of profound courage. I think if more of us were willing to do that, and you can show the numbers of the silent majority, you know, the right used to weaponize this idea of the silent majority. I think the silent majority is scared as hell right now about what Donald Trump is doing to our country. about what it means for them. And I think the hard part is if you don't feel like there's other people who think like you, the incentive is just to be quiet.
Yeah.
And you got to show people, like, actually, the majority thinks like you. The majority wants democracy to work. The majority wants our healthcare system to just work for us.
And no one does that like Bernie because of how much he's been fear-mongered. I don't know if you saw the video that More Perfect Union just put out with Bernie traveling to West Virginia. And there was the one clip of one of the Trump supporters being like, I'm upset with how they made me perceive you. Like, you are coming to this with common sense and empathy. Obviously, you talked a lot on the campaign trail about, like, sometimes people might see my name as like a roadblock to success in politics. What's been like that moment for you where someone's like, this guy's not half bad? Like, I know you're right now you're talking to maybe a few more Democrats than you are independents or Republicans, but like, what's been the change your mind moment for someone on the campaign trail that's really stuck with you and kind of been a guiding light?
You know, Jack, I'll tell you, I've been Abdul my whole life, and you become a very good student of how people react to you when they assume things about you versus when they actually take the time to get to know you, right? I am both a guy named Abdul who is proud of my Muslim faith and my Egyptian American heritage. I'm also a physician and epidemiologist who rebuilt the health department, wrote the book about Medicare for All, and have dedicated my career to getting kids health care and glasses, protecting them from the poisoned air that comes out of smokestacks, and making sure that their families aren't harnessed by medical debt. I'm both those things. And what's interesting is that at least my name is sort of a source of curiosity, and it means that people are going to sometimes show up. I had a guy who came to one of my campaign events, and he's like, I hated you when you ran in 2018. I was like, why? He's like, because your name's Abdul. And you're Muslim. I was like, oh, okay, well, I hate to tell you, I'm still Muslim. He's like,
I appreciate you keeping it in a buck, though.
Yeah, just want to let you know. And he's like, I know, but like I actually started to listen to what you had to say. He's like, it's like you are listening in on the conversations that my wife and I have about our family and what we're worried about after our kids go to sleep. I was like, that's kind of creepy, bro. I'm not listening in your house. I swear to God. He's like, no, I get it. But like, you're talking about those issues.
Yeah.
And you're talking about them in ways where it's clear that you really care about solving them for us. And so, I'm sorry that I felt that way about you, but I came, I listened. I make $30 an hour. I'm giving you one of my hours every single month in a recurring check. I'm telling everybody I know that they should be coming out here. And I'm going to tell you, you have like me, my parents, my brothers and sisters. You got all our votes. And I think what's missed about the way we talk about politics too often is I think we concentrate on these sort of temples, right? Or the other way of thinking about it is a lightning rod, right? Donald Trump is a lightning rod, right? Democrat, Republican, socialist, progressive, all of these words that we put on our politics, right, left, these are all lightning rods in ways that I don't think are helpful. I think if we want to win, I think we got to get back to basics and be able to start with the problems in people's lives. Our healthcare is too expensive. People are hit with the biggest bill they've ever had in the moment where they're the sickest and least capable of paying. It is too hard to afford groceries. It is difficult to believe that you could ever own a home if you're under 40, or that you'll stay in your home if you're over 65. Our jobs feel like they're going away, right? Whether it's a job you've worked for 30 years or the job you're still trying to get because you just graduated from either high school or college or a trade program. If you concentrate on those things and you ask, how could we fix that? And you talk about those problems and solutions to those problems, and you are not bought off by the people who are making the problems worse, this is not that complicated. I've studied complicated stuff. This is not that complicated. The problem, though, is that people are afraid, they're anxious, and there's all kinds of folks who come and prey on the anxiety. Corporate PACs, they go to politicians all the time and say, hey, listen, it's hard. If you just take this $100,000 check, we can help you get elected. And then when you're there, you can do what you want. And then, of course, they get elected. And then the lobbyist comes by and be like, hey, remember that $100,000 check? We're friends, right? Okay, here's the bill we need to pass. Look, it's going to be really good for your folks. And you're like, this is clearly not very good for my folks. You're like, trust us, it's going to be really good. Jobs, it's going to create jobs. You're like, jobs for my people? Or jobs generally for you?
Yeah.
And I just think that we got to be clear about this is the way the game is played. And it's not a game. People are struggling. So here's how we fix the problems.
And I think folks think and will know that that's what's happening behind closed doors. But I think the step for us that we've seen a lot of Democrats, Bernie is obviously one of them, AOC, Zaran, these are people who educate and animate through that understanding. Like when you can get people active is when you can get them like, oh, I can change things. Let me get involved. You've done a lot of explaining on the campaign trail. Well, whether it be talking about a broken healthcare system, corruption through private equity, buying off our lives. What do you think is most important about our broken system right now for Democrats to explain? And why do you think it's so? Like I have my reasons. I think it's what animates people the most. But why do you focus so much on explanation on the campaign trail?
Because I think the hard part about this moment is a lot has changed and people don't necessarily know why. Mm-hmm. And the people who are changing things specifically want to make sure they don't know why. Okay. And I think we've got to be really good about helping people to understand why. Because in the absence of an explanation that's actually based in fact, you get shitty, wrong, terrible explanations like the ones that Donald Trump perpetrates on people. Mm-hmm. Oh, you don't have a job because an immigrant took your job. You don't have health care because an immigrant took your health care. Yeah. You don't have housing, guess what? Immigrant took your housing. It's a simple explanation that actually on its face is believable, even though there's actually no evidence to substantiate it. So you need to have an alternative explanation, and you need to make sure people understand that explanation and the ways that it works if you want to take on the system that's actually creating the pain. Mm-hmm. So to me, like the most important thing I want folks to understand is like the flow of money. A word that has too many syllables is financialization, right? And financialization is the way in which a company's incentive to make money is then hijacked by Wall Street and public trading. Mm-hmm. That's basically what financialization is. So rather than thinking about how Ford makes money 5-10 years from now by building a great product line of excellent cars,
quarter over quarter.
Exactly. Their CEO cares about their stock price. Yeah. Their stock price is a function of what some researcher on Wall Street thinks their stock price is going to be relative to the whole rest of the entire economy, right? Will Ford make more money quarter on quarter than NVIDIA or you name the other publicly traded company? And now Ford is trying to make these decisions to influence some Wall Street stockbroker rather than getting really good at the foundations of their business. And if that happens across the economy, guess what? You start getting really weird economic incentives, which is exactly what our economy is doing right now. And folks are like, why is everything getting more expensive? Well, it's because the pharmaceutical CEOs realized that they only have a certain pipeline of prescription drugs, and the easiest way to raise their quarterly bottom line is to just raise the prices of the drugs everybody already gets. Mm-hmm. So you're sitting there out in Midland, Michigan, and you're like, how the hell did my prescription get that much more expensive? Well, it's because the CEO of whatever corporation sells you that medication just realized that, well, the best thing they could do is just raise the price on your drug. That's a problem. And like, it's a system-wide problem I want folks to understand the foundations of. And if you do that, right, then you can start to point and say, hey, if we wanted to fix that problem, look, we would address this issue here in the system. But the other thing about it is this. What Donald Trump has taught us is that the central currency of politics is attention. And the problem with Democrats is we're like allergic to attention. Mm-hmm. Like the more you can say and keep people paying attention and be like, shit, damn, I'm learning, right? Like the better off you are because people are paying attention to you. Yeah. And like the problem with Democrats is A lot of Democrats don't want the system to be known. Mm-hmm. B, not very good at actually getting attention, explaining the system. And C, right, just not interesting or exciting people.
Or afraid to talk about issues that we don't think we're already winning on.
Yes.
Like I was pulling my hair out over so
Jack,
many.
Never pull your hair out. Okay? Your hair is a public good.
You're the only one who's going to say that.
Don't you ever. Okay?
But like when senators were voting for the Laken-Riley Act, I was like, one, this will be used to expand his authoritarian project and make communities all across the country. And it's not like you don't just have to care about immigrant communities to be upset about this. Like, yeah, if you just want to care about your community, just care about your community. But it was driving me crazy because, two, I was like, this is going to be unpopular in 3 months. And if you do not have the foresight to understand that, get out of the Senate. And I feel like we've done that with so many issues where it has like led us to be unable to get ahead of these things. Yes. I think about Gaza. Like we were told, do not talk about this, too controversial. I think that the overwhelming majority of Americans see the starvation that is happening, see a genocide funded by our tax dollars and say, what the fuck? I think that similarly with trans issues, which Democrats want to run away from, it makes us look worse to just kind of, like, to use this language, pussy out on that and just be like, oh, well, we're a little afraid. We don't want to stand up for people, but we're going to talk down to you like we are. Why are we so weak on shit? And like, why don't we change that? Like, why do we allow ourselves to get scared out of having real conversations? And what needs to change about the party for that not to be the case?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know because I just don't understand because I don't see why people do this. Think of me as sort of a response to this. I'm just like, no, this is stupid. Like, you need to be really good at fighting for what you're for.
Yeah.
Right? And like, the minute people see you backing down on what you believe, what it basically says is you believe nothing because you're not willing to put down your effort and your words and your integrity on the things that you said you believed. Yeah. And so part of me is just like, all right, cool. So when I hear you talking about you're going to lower my healthcare prices, it's only a matter of time. And that's exactly what happens.
Yes.
So to me, it's like people need to know that you're going to show up for them on the things that you need to show up on.
No matter what the numbers say.
No matter what the numbers say. And also, you've given up on your capacity to persuade.
Yeah.
Like, I hate to say it, but like, persuasion is a
crazy.
lost art. It's like, if you think this is right, go out and talk about it. And talk about it in ways that are compelling.
And you should think it's right. Because you're running on it, right? Like, it is crazy to me. I don't understand it. But like, the counterpoint to that is some people would say like, all right, you're in a purplish state. I think that might be a little overblown. I think that considering what the current climate is,
it's about to look real blue, and
people are excited for it to be real blue.
But
and some folks would say, all right, there's some issues that you need to moderate on. Is there any example of someone who came to you with maybe like a different perspective where like, maybe it's not even a left versus right thing, but like, I kind of want to hear you out because there's a big push right now in the party, like maybe we need to run some candidates who are anti-abortion, right? So that we can start to win some conservative. I'm like, fuck, like where? Like Alabama? Like if you want to run that person in Alabama, sure, but like, why are you running them in Michigan where people want their right to, make decisions about their own body protected? Has there been any place where you're like, okay, I am hearing a different perspective, or like something that makes you feel like, maybe moderate on this? Or is it just like,
I don't think about these issues in terms of moderation, because what the problem with that framing is that you are putting public opinion ahead of what you think is right. Leadership is not following public opinion where it's going. Leadership is trying to move public opinion so that public opinion matches the truth. That's leadership.
Yeah.
I'm not getting into this job to just literally chase where everybody's going and just be like, I guess everybody believes this. I guess the sun rises from the west now. Okay, let me be out there and tell them, well, the sun might rise somewhere in the middle. Like, no, it fucking rises in the east.
Yeah.
That's how the sun works. I'm so sorry. It's not even the sun. It's the earth. Okay, so let's just actually talk about the way the system works. And I just think that if you are compelling about explaining what has happened and why it's happened, you can move public opinion. That is what persuasion is supposed to be for. And I hate to say it. Like, too often, the political industrial complex teaches candidates to say the same exact thing in the same exact way all the time, not to maneuver unless there's a poll that shows that public opinion has moved. Now we're going to generate a whole new set of talking points and you're going to stick to the talking points until they're off. No! Your job is to be in conversation with the public about what you think is correct. And it may be that people come and be like, hey, you missed these three parts. And at that point, you're like, well, damn, you educated me. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Let me understand what truth is and let me be an exponent of the truth. And I just think that if more people did politics that way, it would be a lot simpler, and we would see that you can actually get people to come with you when they realize, no, it's actually not the immigrants, because immigrants are a really small proportion of people, and actually our housing markets are being corrupted by the influx of capital that wasn't available before these huge industries were able to take over. Or it's not because immigrants took my healthcare. Actually, it's because you have a few huge corporations that are buying and selling each other as facilitated by the insurance system, which, by the way, charges you $4,000 for the healthcare you thought you already paid for every time you deign to get sick. Maybe that's what's causing the problem. And I just think we got to get real good about explaining that to people so they have a foundational understanding that both says, when you sell me the lie, I understand that lie is just a lie.
Yeah.
And when you talk about a policy position that can fix it, I understand that I could fix it. Now look, is this really hard work? Yes. Are we going to be able to do it in 2 days? No. Is it easier to just chase public opinion and just say the thing it seems like everybody is for with zero sense of fealty to the truth? Probably.
But where's that gotten us?
I just didn't get into this line of work to just follow public opinion because that's where popularity is. I just want to be clear about something. I mean, we're in a situation right now where people are trying to sell you the lie that somehow Charlie Kirk was a modern day saint.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk should never have been a victim of political violence. Charlie Kirk had 2 daughters I know he loved deeply, like I love my 2 daughters. He had a wife I know he loved deeply. He should have been able to live out his whole life doing exactly what he was doing because he was in the bounds of what was possible and what was justified and what is allowed and what is the right way of engaging in discussion. That does not mean that what he was saying itself was right. Mm-hmm. It does not mean that what he was saying itself was the truth. It does not mean that we have to all of a sudden launder everything he said and beatify him right at the altar of our history. Trying to turn Charlie Kirk into some sort of modern day civil rights hero is a really, really dangerous thing. And at the same time, he should never have been shot.
I think we can have those 2 ideas in our head at the same time.
It's not too difficult. And so, but the problem is that on the right, they are trying to perpetuate this idea that he was a modern day civil rights icon. They're trying to flood all these algorithms with the things that he said that were acceptable. And of course, he said things that were acceptable, that were fine. He said things that I agreed with sometimes. The problem is that he also said a lot of things that I deeply disagree with, and the idea of trying to whitewash his legacy when he intentionally said those things about people who were vulnerable in ways that were really, really, really dangerous, that's a problem, right? And so we can both agree that he never should have died and that he should be alive today. And that if I could have stopped that assassin and stopped that assassin's bullet, I absolutely would have, right? Because even if this is a man with whom I deeply disagreed, who hated people like me and said it openly, I still believed in his right to say it. And also say that the things he said were vile and wrong and made us a less good people.
Yeah.
We could say both things. And here's the thing. If you can move public opinion to the direction of truth, that is what's best for us. And both of those things are true. And I think people are trying to tell you, right, a manufactured untruth by making you think that somehow, right, the fact that he was wrongly assassinated makes up for, right, the things he said and that it erases all the bad things he said. I think that's a problem. And you look at this resolution and the number of Democrats who signed on or voted for this resolution, in effect, trying to turn him into some kind of hero. I was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you joking? We can both say he shouldn't have died and also say that what he said was wrong. You don't have to pretend like it's one or the other.
And I think this is such an important place to close, because I know it's a busy guy right here. And speaking of which, if you want to help support the campaign, before I get into my little spiel here, can you give the quick plug?
I'm at abdulforsenate.com. I hope folks will check us out. I hope you'll follow us on socials right here on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or wherever you are.
We'll have it all linked below.
I hope that you'll sign on, because at the end of the day, we need to build a movement that is dedicated to actually solving problems for people. That is what this campaign is about. And as they say, what's the famous line that the truth doesn't care about your feelings? Mm-hmm. I actually think the truth does care about your feelings. I think we all feel better about where we live if we were actually a little bit more willing to actually have an honest, good faith conversation about what the truth is. And I hope that this campaign can be a part of that. And I know that your show is a part of that, and so I'm grateful to get the opportunity to spend some time.
I appreciate it, and I wanted to close. I'm glad that you brought up the truth and the feelings. These things are connected. To close on this, because I've been thinking about it so much, and for all of the people who had the response to the Ezra Klein, the kind of lionizing, and he had his feelings, but I thought a lot of it was based in Charlie Kirk built a movement that maybe he was envious of. To me, this was a media mogul. This was not a political actor. He did a great job building a media company. And so I think to make a memorial of that is kind of like a memorial of clip farming and following the algorithm. And that's tough. But people had the reaction that they did. I think it's fair for a lot of people. But I just thought it was difficult as folks who, and you for a little bit longer, not to call you Unc, but who have spent our lives the apology that the right wanted from us and the condemnation of gun violence and political violence we've lived, right? We have fought for these things to see their end. But I thought it was very difficult to ask a black woman who Charlie Kirk said that you are not smart enough to get a job to mourn. And the way that you've talked about this, you seem to think about like yourself in the way that Charlie Kirk viewed you and spoke about people who look like you in the context of this all. How have you approached it, do you think, differently and thought about Charlie Kirk and all of this differently because of your background, like because of who you are?
I mourn a dad and a husband, and I have 2 little daughters just about the same age as him. And I shudder to think what it would mean for my family if that kind of violence would come from me. And it's something, as the nature of what I do, like I have had to think about in large part because people who carry beliefs about people like me, like the ones espoused. So I have very complex feelings, but it's not difficult to tease out the very clear things. I didn't hate Charlie Kirk. I hated a lot of the things that he said. I found them wrong and despising, but I didn't hate him. And
Do you think that's something that you've had to grapple with more through your life? Being like, fucking, these people say disgusting things, but I have to be bigger. I have to meet a moment in which my focus is to show like the humanity that they want to strip from me. And so like that's why your approach is different. Because I feel like someone like myself maybe can and has more easily jumped to like, fucking hate this guy was a bigot. Like I despise him. But do you think that you come from a place where you're like, I don't want to be equally bringing us down to a place that lacks humanity like they fundamentally seek to?
you know what I'm sad about? Like, I think you have to always be playing for tomorrow. And I could imagine a tomorrow for somebody like a Charlie Kirk where he sees the humanity that I see in him, in me. And that he says, like a lot of the things I said about people like you probably weren't right. And you know what? Even if he never said, I'm sorry, I was wrong, that he changes his tone. He rethinks it. He connects to something that is more human. He'll never have that opportunity. And he'll never have that opportunity because of a kind of hate that was directed at him. And so I think all of us have to stop like essentializing people to the best or worst things that they said. I think we have to always, always hope for and pray for tomorrow for those folks. And at the same time, he's not on this, on this earth anymore. And to try to claim that somehow he's some sort of modern day civil rights icon or a hero is to do a grave amount of injustice to the content he poured in that he never disavowed, that made us more angry, more hateful, more lonely, more sad, more frustrated. And I get that there are certainly things he said to some people who made them feel the opposite of those things. But I think that it's too easy in this environment to constantly chase an algorithm to where it's going and to reap a lot of reward off of saying the worst things that people feel. And I think that all of us have a responsibility in this moment, in the memory of Charlie Kirk, right? To ask, what does it look like to actually say what should be said in the direction of trying to get us to truth and to better? There is no truth in the idea that some people are genetically more inferior than others. There is no truth in the idea that because of how you pray, somehow you're better or worse than somebody else. There is no truth in the idea that people who love differently or express their gender differently are lesser people than anyone else. There is no truth in the idea that somehow your humanity should be ignored because of who you are. And I just think that we have to be willing to stand up and say, injustice took the life of a father and a husband and a public commenter. And that's wrong, and that's bad, and that should never happen, and we don't want that in our society. And at the same time, the things that were said here were wrong and created a lot of the same kind of division that I think we're seeing too much of. And what I worry about is in the project here on the part of the Trump administration is to use the memory and the laundering of the memory of Charlie Kirk to get away with undercutting exactly the kind of free speech that I do commend him for. That's the irony of the whole thing. The memory of Charlie Kirk isn't that he was some sort of saint and said like all the things that were true and right and just. The memory of Charlie Kirk is that he actually had the audacity to go out into places where people disagreed with him and say the thing he thought. I think we'd be better off if people did that. I wish people believed and thought better things. But he did that thing. He celebrated freedom of speech. And now, in his name and the attempt to whitewash his legacy, they're trying to get away with a project that would have undercut exactly what Charlie Kirk did, that I actually agree with.
Yeah, I think that it kind of shows what the legacy is when the actions that were taken immediately after were undercut speech, harass HBCUs. But I think that we need to come out of this in a better place. A guy who can do subtlety. That's someone I want in the Senate.
I appreciate you.
I appreciate you joining me today. We kept you a long time, but I really appreciate this conversation.
Thank you for making the time and hosting us. And folks, keep listening. We got a good one here. So
Check out the campaign. Everything linked below. And we'll see you soon.
appreciate you, man.